What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So I have officially hit 100 hours in Solar Crown. You know what? It has been a pretty interesting experience so far. I'm actually going to break this down a bit, guys, going over the things I really like about the game, and of course, on top of that, going over some things I don't like, and also some of my overall concerns here in this game after having over 100 hours on it. Now, I did actually want to start this entire thing off with going over some positive things on the game, and then, of course, going into some of the negatives and stuff like that about Test Drive, which I'm definitely sure a lot of players are most likely going to agree with it. So, the first things first, though, is everybody, I would say, for the most part, is actually going to have a great time in Test Drive when the game does actually work. The reason for that, though, is I've had such a great time driving around in this game, and I would say right now, for me at least, now I do know this can probably sound a bit insane, but I really do love the map in Test Drive. Like, it's so good. The map actually doesn't look all that big like looking at it in the menu and stuff, but I would say when you're actually driving around the map, it seems bigger than it actually is. And on top of that, though, going fast in this game is going to be such a vibe, man. Like, they really did nail the sense of speed in Test Drive. It is going to be so dang fun going fast in different cars, actually trying to get them to handle, and of course watching out for the insane AI along the way of it. I feel like a lot of players are definitely going to enjoy it. Another positive note, guys, is when looking at the map here, there is also going to be a lot of events in the game which I really did enjoy. There is legit going to be over 170 events in the entire game. Apparently there's over 90 of these speed traps as well, which is pretty nuts. On top of that, guys, of all of the events, you're also going to have a ton of tasks you can actually do. Now, it's going to show me having 61 here, which is, not going to be the total amount, but I am max level at 60, so you have 37 different ones you can do for the vehicles, which I actually think is a pretty dope addition there. Have to admit that. We're also then going to have other ones you can do that do give you money, like getting finishes in races, beating certain races in a certain amount of time, and stuff like that's also going to be part of it. And luckily, you're also going to have other challenges when actually hitting level 55 to do the longer race that all give you $1 million. On top of that, guys, you're also going to have a ton of other tasks you can actually do. So I do admit, I actually feel like they did a great job in the overall content department because there's a lot of different things you can do. I did actually make two different videos about this going up to the progression to level 60 and then the after level 60 progression and the overall endgame content for different racing games. I have to admit, guys, I do know their game is not perfect because there is one thing that doesn't work, of course, when making this video, and that's going to be the ranked events. Personally, I actually cannot wait. That's not the rank. There it is. I actually cannot wait to do the ranked events when they do end up working, specifically in the off-road side of it. Like, I'm really excited for those. And I do feel like once the actual update does come out, then they're most likely going to have the entire thing sorted out just a tad better. At least that's what I'm thinking about it anyway, and that would most likely make a lot of sense. Besides that, though, once again, you're going to have a ton of races to do in the game, so that is going to be a very big positive. I do actually admit, I would say most of the people that will end up playing Solar Crown really are going to love this map, man. Like, I do know a lot of players can agree that, yeah, there's going to be issues in the game, but my goodness, though, they did such a great job on the actual map design in it. And I would say that's going to be good because in a racing game, you probably want a good map design. That is probably going to help it just a little bit. I mean, having a good map in a racing game, who knew? That probably would have helped it. The other thing I do like about this game, now I do understand there's not a ton of them, that is going to be the way the cars actually feel. I really do like the fact that I can jump into something like a Maserati MC20 and then jump into something like a Ford GT afterwards, then jump into something like the Buggy, then like the Range Rover. To me, every single car actually has a different feeling to it. I really like that. It almost gives the cars like a character to them to where you're like, oh, I'm actually going to drive this car because it feels a little bit lighter. It's going to be rear-wheel drive. It's going to have more power. It accelerates better. Or I'm going to go into something like the Ford GT to where it's a bit heavier, going to have a different feeling to like the overall driving aspects of it. It's going to steer differently. The power delivery is different. Like, I do like how every car is going to have different characteristics to it, which I would say a lot of racing games might have a bunch of cars in there or something, to where some of the cars might feel similar, like some might be awful, which, don't get me wrong, there's still going to be a whole meta thing in this game, but that is probably something you can never truly get rid of. That's most likely going to be in every single racing game, am I right? and it's probably going to be fairly difficult to really get rid of something like a meta when a lot of cars will end up being better in general compared to other ones. But I would say when players probably level up and stuff and get better parts for their cars, they are most likely really going to get addicted to this game and actually play it because of the way the cars actually feel. And on top of that, there's a bunch of different races in the game that you can do with them. Now, one thing I do admit though about the races, guys, heading back into the map here, is I really don't know how I feel about the max PR ranking on some of the events. The reason for that is I wish they'd actually make it to where maybe you can have the event itself maybe being maxed out to a different rank if you wanted to do it. Like, quick example, this race is going to be a max of 900. Where's another hypercar race? That's a 1050 for supercar. Now, one change I was thinking about with this though is maybe they can actually make it so it's not going to max out the PR of a vehicle, or at least you can maybe have that vehicle higher leveled. Like, let's say that race is going to require something like a 750 or 850. Maybe they can make it so some of the races can be like 950, 1100, something like this race here in the hypercar category. At least have an option like that. Like, let's say you guys have a daily driver at level like 850 or something. Wouldn't that be kind of dope if you can jump into like the urban rivalry event here and make it 850 in your favorite daily driver car? Wouldn't that be kind of dope? I feel like that would be a pretty cool change they could add to the game, hopefully in the future of the events. Now, the other thing I did want to add into this though is I do know not everybody's going to be a fan of it, but I actually like the way they did end up doing the clan influence here in Solar Crown. We're obviously going to have these sharps in the streets. You pick your side, you level them up and get some things throughout the entire thing that you're actually doing. The one thing I did like about this though is the fact that you are going to get clothing unlocks and stuff like that throughout it. I really did enjoy the actual boss races in the clan side of it. Now I do understand people are like, bro, leveling up the clan's kind of useless, like it's not all that fun. And I do understand that, but the thing I really enjoyed about it was going against the actual racers in the clan influence side of it. That was really fun. You're battling them, you're actually doing like a boss type of race. Once you beat them, you actually get some cool clothing items and stuff like that from them, which I would say is a pretty dope feature. What's also kind of hilarious, now I haven't hit level 50 yet, but I'm actually insanely close, but once you do actually do the level 50 event, you do have to race a Bugatti Chiron 300 plus Super Sport, which is funny because that car is currently not even in the game. And my goodness, I can't wait to see how fast that car will go, and also how much money that thing is probably going to cost. Maybe 10 to 12 million, guys. Let me know your thoughts on the price of that thing in the comments below. But I always have to admit though, like I do understand people won't end up liking the clan influence, like they think it's going to be a waste of time. Like I do understand that, but at the same time though, it is going to be another side of progression that adds on to it, to where you're going to have to do different races, level it up, you'll get different unlocks, you'll also get different races on top of it. So I feel like it's going to be a pretty fun time for the most part, and they were probably trying to do something different with it, which in some ways I think it worked, and in other ways, it probably didn't. Now, I also did want to go over some of the more negative parts of the game and give my honest thoughts on it. So first things first, guys, I'm sure a lot of players are most likely expecting it. I have to admit something, though, about it. Yes, I do know the servers are a bit odd for a lot of people. For me, to be honest, though, I haven't had a lot of issues with it, though. The reason why I do say that is here in North America on the PlayStation 5, for that matter, the biggest issue I seem to be having once in a while is the game will hard crash. Not all the time, but sometimes it's going to happen, then other times it's completely fine. Really don't know why, but besides that, the servers seem to be working okay. I will get like the occasional timeout error and stuff like that, but it's not going to be constant. The next thing I had to talk about in this, though, is going to come down to something I feel like everybody's probably thinking about, and that is going to be the damp roads or the rainy weather constantly happening all the time. Now, I did actually have some people saying, well, it's always going to be rainy in Hong Kong. I get that, but bro, the issue is a lot of the cars in the rain do not like to handle whatsoever, so guess what that's going to mean? You're then going to have to be forced to use certain vehicles. Quick example of that, guys, at level 60 you do end up getting the Apollo IE unlocked, right? The issue with that is in the rain, though, you're pretty much going to have to run standard tires on it and basically hope for the best, man. Like, you are going to slide everywhere. It's going to be slightly drivable, but again, it is going to be a bit annoying. I also don't understand why about 95% of the hypercar events seem to always have like damp or wet roads all the time, which is probably going to be a tad frustrating if you want to drive a two-wheel drive vehicle in there and probably not have to struggle against something like the four-wheel drive cars completely taking off. I would say a lot of players are like, yeah, bro, they do need to fix it. On top of the hypercar races always being wet, did anybody else notice at nighttime the roads are always damp for some reason? Like, no matter if the sky's going to be clear in the game, the roads are still going to have puddles and wetness and stuff like that, which is of course going to mean the rear-wheel drive cars again are not going to be all that great, and you're probably going to be like, so if I do want to go faster, my car doesn't want to spin out every 15 seconds, let me jump into a four-wheel drive vehicle. Like, I think they do need to fix it. One of the solutions I would say is to maybe not make the ground wet 24/7 when it's not raining or something. Like at nighttime, maybe the road doesn't have to be wet every single time, and at least maybe get rid of some of the damp roads in about 90% of those hypercar events, but leave some of the events with actual rain showers in it would probably make a lot more sense. One solution I would have for the vehicles sliding everywhere is, well, maybe they can actually buff the rear-wheel drive vehicles slightly so they have a bit more traction, or the other thing they could do is maybe make it so we have rain tires for the rear-wheel drive cars so they don't slide everywhere. I mean, something has to work there, bro. I feel like they have to do it. The reason for that is we can clearly see like a four-wheel drive meta thing going on, so maybe something like that would end up fixing it, making some of the rear-wheel drive cars even better. The other thing I did want to talk about in this, guys, is going to come down to something like the ranked game mode. I really do hope this does actually work right when the actual update comes out, because I really do want to try it. At the moment when I was trying to join some of the races, I couldn't find somebody. Like, I wasn't that upset about it, but I do understand an entire ranked PvP game mode sounds pretty dang fun to me, man. Like, a few of the races are going to be highlighted on the map and stuff like that, which if I actually head into the map here quick, let me go over this way. Look for the highlighted orange races. There's one there, guys. Quick example. So you're probably going to see a few different races. Normally, I think it's two of them that are going to be highlighted. The other one's going to be the off-road event, I believe. Where'd it go? Maybe not. Let me, Ah, there it is, guys. I'm wrong. So it did change. The other one's going to be over here. So I would say having like random races being ranked like that is a pretty cool design. I like it. And the fact that there's going to be two of them is also going to add on to it. Like you have the Grand Tour, then you have the supercar, hypercar ones. Like I do like the idea of it. The thing is though, the rank system does actually have to work when you are going to want to race with people, which I would say is probably the biggest issue. And on top of that, guys, another solution I would say with the actual races themselves, by the way, this is something I feel like everybody does want, and that is going to come down to the actual events maybe being single player focused. And here's what I actually mean by this. Let's say you actually go up to one of the events, and instead of actually starting it up, it's then going to start a random matchmaking thing like it does right now, to where you're actually starting that race up, hopefully somebody else is, and then it's going to find people that want to do that race with you, which is honestly a very odd design. Instead, the way they should actually do is going to have two different tabs on it. One should actually say play solo, the other one multiplayer matchmaker, something that way you can do like a PvP type of race against other people. That way it's going to separate the matchmaking. That way it's not going to be like completely together and basically be like a cluster or something like that. And I feel like that's probably a better way to do it. I actually got really confused, guys, how they did end up making it into one said matchmaking thing and not making it separated. That definitely needs some work in the events. That would probably also help the fact that if you did want to do every single race solo, you will easily be able to do it without some random person joining you. But if you actually want to do some races with people, at least that said option is going to be there. The other thing I did want to talk about in my 100 hours of playing the game, which I do understand, guys, we're legitimately getting a patch incredibly soon in the game, so this is probably going to be fixed when doing this review. The thing is, though, if you're going to be looking at that, that is going to be the AI, man. Look, they are going to be a bit insane. Now, I admit, though, after playing the game a bit and practicing, I'm not really having that many issues with them. Normally, I'm actually beating most of the AI about 99% of the time, where some of the events like, yeah, the 812 Superfast is going to smoke you. Sometimes that lovely hypercar, which is the 918 Spider, is also going to fly by you in certain times as well. But again, I feel like the AI are definitely going to need some type of changes in them, which I do know that is coming in the patch, though. A lot of players are not happy with them, and I get it. They really should have had a design like this, guys, let's be honest. Instead of having every single racer on AI unless you lose the events, then the actual difficulty goes down. How about they do it like this? Let's say you actually have the difficulty of the AI being like novice, professional, expert, Why don't they make it to where it has a difficulty slider in there? That way, if you guys want to play on novice, you can. If you want to play on professional or expert, you also can. But every single time you actually play on one of those said difficulty rankings, each one is going to give you more money and XP as a bonus if you play on it. That I would say is going to be the best way to do it. Now, what's funny about this though is this entire system would actually work a lot better if they actually designed the entire matchmaking system to be something like solo, and then of course the multiplayer design like I mentioned earlier. That way they can actually have the difficulty slider in there on a solo mode, and who knows, maybe they can have it on multiplayer, but then again guys, it's probably going to be based on the other AI and like the people you are racing. Then again though, multiplayer should probably be only players would make a lot more sense, and then have like the actual AI to be separated in the said solo mode. At least that's the way I am looking at it. Overall though guys, I have to admit, despite the issues in test drive, I am really enjoying it. Does the game need work? Of course it definitely does. And this can also be me being a tad too optimistic, but I do feel like the overall core gameplay of Test Drive, and on top of that the actual foundation of it, really could have an insanely bright future to it with the proper updates. And I do feel like a lot of people do feel the exact same way. But of course that's also going to come down to one simple factor. The patches have to fix the issues, and hopefully some of the players that did actually leave might end up coming back when the game does eventually improve. I would like to know what you guys think about this in the comments below. What are your overall thoughts on Test Drive right now? How much time do you have played in it? What are some things you would like to see changed, or some things that you like about it? And I feel like there's going to be a lot of things on both sides of every single thing here. Again guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below.